Our virtual program visit tonight is with Daniel Bolen over in Elgin. Thank you, Daniel, for doing this. This will be recorded so that folks can reach out and ask questions and touch bases with you as they have additional questions. So I'll turn it over to Daniel, and I will not end the meeting this time.
Thanks, Lee. So, as Lee said, my name is Daniel Bolen. I am in year 16 now. I guess 8th year here in Elgin. 8th year, yeah, I think 8th year, 8th or 9th. I kind of lost count. And I'm happy to be here and sharing information today with you guys about my program. So, when I started here in Elgin in 2014, I followed an amazing gentleman by the name of Brent Carroll. He had been here 7 years before me, and did some really great things to the kids. And when he retired, actually he kind of recruited me for the better part of a year to get me out here. I wanted to come here, but he lobbied pretty hard with this school to make sure that I got a fair shake in an interview, and came out here and interviewed, and I fell in love with Elgin right away. My family roots actually trace back to the Elgin La Grande area several generations. And so this was almost kind of like a coming home for me to some extent, and to get to teach here. So I was really excited when I got the job. Interesting tidbit of information is this was the first job I applied to out of college while I was finishing up my master's program, and didn't get the job. And then 7 years later, it was available again, and I did get it. And so glad that I'm able to be here. So a little bit about our program. We're growing. When I started here in 2014, we were affiliate when I started, before the state became affiliate. And I had probably, I think, around 50 members in total program enrollment, and maybe 12 of those were really involved in the FFA. That number had climbed pretty steadily, and then it dipped during COVID and has recovered again. And we're actually at our all-time high enrollment and involvement. I believe my membership roster is hovering right around 100 now, which is 2/3 of our, at least 2/3 of our school, actually a touch more than 2/3 of our school. And my active kids in FFA that participate in regular activities and meetings, I would say is probably at least 65 to 70 students. So it has definitely, some really great things have happened here, and it's seen some great growth. We have been a pretty traditional program with focuses on ag mechanics, animal science, and plant science, with a general ag class. My teaching schedule includes multiple levels of ag mechanics, usually in 1, maybe 2 periods, depending on how the schedule works out in a typical year. And animal science. In the past, I've had plant science. We've changed that up a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I also teach junior high ag. When I started here, we were busing 7th and 8th graders over here 1 period a day, and they would spend a semester with me and a semester with the woodshop teacher. And then that evolved, and we were busing them here for 3 periods a day, and they would take their health and PE while they were over here too, but they still had a semester with me and a semester with our woods and construction teacher. And then we had a severely dramatic winter that led to some major structural issues in our building. And with that came a concept redesign of some things we did in our building, and that, coupled with a revitalization grant that I got that added a new classroom space for me, which I'll talk about in a bit, we permanently brought the 7th and 8th grade over to our building full time. So brought all their teachers, because we had some extra classroom space because of the redesign from the structural damage that we received, and as well as the addition to the fact that I added my own new classroom. We brought them over here permanently. And so I do still get 7th and 8th graders. We have historically had them in a required block where they are required to take a specific elective. And I only get them for a semester. Next year, that's going to evolve with the interest in my program. I've stepped out of the required elective for junior high to a true elective for junior high. And the advantage to that is I get them all year instead of just for a semester. So it'll be, and I'll only have the kids that actually want to be in my class instead of all the 7th and 8th graders. So it'll be a really positive thing. With some of the growth we've experienced, we, I guess 2 years ago, hired a science teacher who had a pretty extensive agriculture background, and we jumped through the hoops of getting her an ag endorsement. And she has a lot of plant science background. And so she took over managing the greenhouse last spring after she came off of her maternity leave. So I kind of helped manage it when she was on her maternity leave. My wife was her long-term sub. So my wife and I kind of went through those things for a while, and then she took over. And then this year she has an actual plant science class that's part of our program of study. And so in addition to all my 6 periods of classes, she has a plant science class that's also part of our ag program of study, and has about 15 students in that. And so she's been running the greenhouse with that. Some of you probably met Sonia Borders at summer conference. She's another one that is actually our math teacher, who had some agricultural background, and we jumped through the hoops and got her an ag endorsement as well. And the planned vision is a food products and processing wing of our program. We're working on some facility expansion. And so she's still probably another year out from getting to that point, but we're looking forward to having that opportunity to get her teaching with some of this food products and processing in partnership with a local USDA processor here in Elgin. So I guess I'll backtrack a little bit, talk about the revitalization grant, because that kind of really ties into how we expanded our facilities. So I'm going to walk you out to the shop, turn my camera around here. So where I'm standing right now would have been the back corner of where my shop was. This was the extent of my shop prior to 2016. We received a almost $350,000 CTE revitalization grant and added all this space, including my classroom. And apparently my iPad is not focusing very well. My apologies for that. And then we added the classroom space. So we nearly doubled our square footage with that revitalization grant. My classroom was actually down the hall in a teeny tiny hole in the wall of a classroom. And so we had to walk down to the shop for my shop classes. And so it was nice to expand. I am a case certified in AF&R and plant. And so it was nice to have a space that worked a little more efficiently for lab work, and to get moving here, as well as we have nice big windows that overlook the shop, so I can supervise students readily from my classroom, so I can have students in both areas. So this in my classroom, our typical classes, I run about anywhere from my smallest class this year is 9 students on up to I think my biggest class, I've got 23 kids in there. I have table space for 24 at this point. And so we've got lab tables that I regularly arrange out into different positions, and then some nice storage space. You will notice that I do not have cabinet doors on my cabinets. One of the disadvantages of being in a smaller school is when you're trying to piece together funding streams. One of the things that we did is we saved some money by hiring the cabinets done locally, and we said we would stain them. I am not the wood shop teacher, and so having metal shop students do cabinet staining was a bit of a challenge. And so We just haven't finished the doors. We're actually hoping to get them up here by the end of the school year. I was really shooting to get them up before today, but that didn't happen. But we're in line to get their cabinet doors up before the end of the school year for the cabinetry storage in the classroom. In addition, I've got some nice big cabinets here. This is pretty much almost all my case materials. I've got lab quests and microscopes and other chemicals. With the movement of our junior high up here, they came with junior high science equipment, and we have one science teacher that teaches junior high and high school. And so there wasn't a need for all that extra equipment. So I ended up inheriting a bunch of the junior high science equipment, a whole bunch of lab quests, microscopes, a lot of the things that we use in the case curriculum, which was great, as well as I had a decent amount that I'd written in some different grants to get those. And so that's all in these cabinets. When we did the expansion, it kind of would have, if we didn't enclose in this space, it would have been just kind of a little cubby. So when I come out this door, it's a hallway. We've got the door to the music room, the door to our concession stand, and the door to the boys' locker room. And all of these, when I came here in 2014, were exterior doors. So when we added the expansion, we basically created this hallway here, which to my benefit has turned into a storage space. So I've got a whole bunch more cabinets where I'm able to store other materials, as well as shelving. And then those boxes in the back corner are all, those are all engine boxes. I've got 30 small engines, which we'll look at my engine lab here in a minute. And then the nice advantage of it is that I'm right off the kitchen concession stand. So when we do our drive-through barbecue fundraisers and whatnot, all of that is right outside my classroom door. So it's basically an extension of my classroom to have that resource right there. So with the classroom expansion and the revitalization grant, I'm sorry if you're getting motion sick. I get motion sick, and so this probably would make you sick. If you're anything like me watching this video, I'll try to keep it smooth. So when we came in and invested in here in the shop, I came and we didn't have so much as a hand tool, hardly. We did, what hand tools we had were a lot of things that I brought from home my first year here. Just stuff disappeared over the years. So with our revitalization grant, we invested in tools. So I bought a couple of fully stocked tool cabinets that have just about everything you would imagine needing for a metal shop. All outfitted in these tool cabinets, as well as another rolling tool chest over there in the corner, which has quite a bit of stuff. At that same time, we invested in a vertical turret mill, and as well as a new CNC ArcLight CNC plasma cutter. Those were some of our big investments at that time. Since then, we've again, as a small school, we've made best with the money we've had. These are our original welding booths that I had. So, just this year, students went through, I had a group of students that went through and cut out all the old metal, and we replaced everything with Hardy Backer cement board. So for those of you that are used to students striking an arc on the inside of your welding booths and making a mess of the inside of your welding booths, we've done all Hardy Backer. And then we use Pathways dollars to replace our old buzz boxes in here with a Miller-Matic 215, which is a multi-process welder. So once we finish getting them hooked up to gases, they'll be able to do wire feed welding, stick welding, as well as TIG welding. We also were lucky enough to pick up these oxyacetylene welding booth stations from Burns High School years ago for $700. We brought them back, painted up, cleaned them up, got them all set up, and then had ductwork installed into them so that we have some oxyacetylene welding stations. Because when I got here, it was one portable cart was all of the oxyacetylene equipment that we had. We have also gotten into powder coating in the last couple of years. And so we have a powder coating spray booth and supplies, as well as we've got a 4 foot by 8 foot powder coat oven. So we're able to get some pretty large objects into our oven. If you have driven through Elgin in the last couple of years, at the edge of town, each of the edges of town, there is a large 3-layered metal sign depicting a different scene. We created those, as well as we powder coated them and put them all together, and then the city mounted them. So that's been some pretty cool things we've been able to do with that. We basically operate a student manufacturing business. We call it the Elgin FA Husky Fabricators. And the Husky Fabricators student-run business does metal art, other sign designs. We also have a CO2 laser engraver on the end of the shop. I'll show you in a moment. And so we're doing quite a bit of fabrication and design, different projects for different entities. And we've built up quite a reputation in the county. We are picking up business from different areas as a result. Some of the things we're also doing with some of our metal is patina work. We're using patina. So right now this is a sign that a student's working on that's been soaking in vinegar to loosen up the mill scale. And then we use a variety of chemical patinas from Steel FX to create different designs. Picked that up at a fall conference from Kelly Robinson from Hermiston. And that has just gone gangbusters and has been really excited. Our community's been really excited by it. I'll take you and show you the plasma cutter, or excuse me, our laser engraver. Our school district is part of a grant program called Gear Up, which has been following the class of 2025 in improving graduation and college rates. And so we actually got a grant through Gear Up to invest in this Boss Laser 3655. It is capable of, it has a huge cutting envelope, so we can get some pretty big projects in there. We don't have anything currently running. I've been kind of quiet on the laser this week, but we are able to, students are able to do design work on that. We do, those of you who have arc light plasma tables, like I've got, you're probably familiar with a lot of the design work is done in Inkscape. So we're set up, I have a set of 10 laptops in my classroom where students can do design work in Inkscape, and then we can send it either out to the laser or to the plasma cutter, because they read the same type of DXF files. So the students are pretty adept at their design work, do a lot of their own design work, and then send those out to the machines for production. And then we'll finish them with a patina or a spray paint or a powder coat, whatever the customer desires. Or one of them, I left it out to show, oh, there it is. One of the designs we're working on right now is for our local electric co-op, which actually serves Union, Baker, and Grant counties, Oregon Trail Electric Co-op. So they're putting signage in all of their offices. This is a smaller version of one we did, a sign they put in their corporate headquarters, which was over 4 foot in diameter. This is a smaller one that'll go in one of their smaller offices, but there's gonna be one in each of their offices that come out of our shop. So that's kind of cool to see those kind of things in different places around the community that our students have manufactured. And like I said, we've grown to gain the interest of quite a few businesses around the community who know that they can come to us for particularly for metal art designs. Just down this end of the shop is material storage, as well as our band saws and a chop saw. And then back in here is our engine lab. So with the revitalization grant back in 2016, I bought a kit of 10 engines from Briggs and Stratton, which had allowed me to also go to the Briggs and Stratton training in Milwaukee. And so if you've ever gone to that, Briggs and Stratton sends you home with a whole bunch of engines. So I came home with, I think, 14 engines, We've had others donated. Briggs and Stratton will continue to donate an engine a year. All you have to do is fill out a form online. If you're teaching engines, they will send you an engine. So I have about 30 different engines that we teach from. We spent the first part of the year focused on the basics of engines and tearing down these engines from Briggs and Stratton. And then now, as you can see, we're honing our skills by actually taking in some devices that mowers and other things, including apparently a motorcycle, that don't run for some reason or another, and students are troubleshooting those and trying to get that problem solved and figure out what's going on with those. So on the other side of that wall is another storage bay that's accessible from the outside, where we've got a considerable amount of material storage there. Mostly our show supplies, those sort of things are stored back in there. And then as we move outside, right outside, we have access to our greenhouses. We currently have 2 greenhouses and a potting shed. When I got here, we had just this first greenhouse, which I think is a 20 by 48. And it was in pretty rough shape when I got here. The district and some grant money we invested in fixing it up and getting it going. I love the plants, but with Lanique running everything in the greenhouse this year, I have kind of missed out. And so I kind of missed, this is one of my first times out here this year, getting to show what we've got going. But we've got a variety of bedding annuals and baskets in both houses. This is mostly the bedding annuals. The other house is completely full of baskets. This house I got with a grant through Oregon State, focused on school garden concepts. We grew tomatoes in it for 1 year, and that was kind of the extent of all we had to do to get the grant. So we have our baskets in here. We contract grow. We have one local community member where she's got her own cocoa mat baskets, and so she wants so many of them that we let her or pick her own color and grow those, as well as they haven't been transplanted into city baskets yet, but we grow baskets for hanging downtown as well as the city's got barrels scattered through town that we grow and manage the watering of the barrels and the baskets downtown. So that's where we've got going in our greenhouses. We are through some farm to school grant funding and some other sources. We are in works for a 3rd greenhouse, which is going to come out here. We've got a fair amount of grassy space out here. The only real thing in the way is the football concession or football ticket booth. But the vision is another greenhouse, which is going to come out here in the short term. And then out where that bare tree is in the grassy field on the other side of that chain link fence, we're going to be putting in raised bed and garden boxes and fencing that in for some school garden concepts. Probably noticed there in the parking lot a considerable amount of building material. That's a new structure that we're going to be putting in called the Elgin Husky Field House. It is actually going to go back here right behind my shop. It's going to be 100 by 100 space that will house a new weight room, because our current weight room is on the 2nd floor above our locker rooms, and safety audits have said if we are lucky, it's not going to collapse on our locker rooms. So we're going to put in this new building that have a weight room, new locker rooms for the football field. It'll be 2-story, have a crow's nest in it. The 2nd story will also include a new business technology classroom, but it's also going to have a new science lab, and most importantly, our new kitchen teaching space. That's where our ag program kitchen is going to be, is in that new building for teaching our food products and processing, and partnering with local butcher shop, Billy Bob's Butcher Shop, which is a USDA process. Work my way back inside here. It's been some really great stuff going on the last couple years. I have an amazing superintendent who is excited to really grow our programs. She is all in on CTE, particularly in ag education. And she, to some extent, I kind of joke, she dreams bigger than I do. So I have an idea and she usually has a bigger idea. We, this last year, got another CTE revitalization grant, and we have invested pretty heavily in ultrasound technology. It was a cooperative revitalization grant between myself and between Elgin and Imbler. So JD, Kent, and I have been jumping through the hoops to become certified carcass ultrasound technicians for beef and sheep. And so that's been kind of a cool experience this year. And we are offering a deep dive this summer at conference on livestock carcass ultrasounds. With that also has been a $50,000 out of that grant is going towards the purchase of a school farm facility. That started with that vision of, we put 50,000 down. The school board said, we'll match that 50,000. That vision has grown considerably. And I spoke with my superintendent this morning, and unfortunately, I don't have any information that I can share because she's still in negotiations with a property owner. But we're looking at opportunities that would allow us to be really close to the school, which actually technically is in city limits, which opens up a wealth of new grants. And she has hired a professional grant writer, and they're pursuing upwards of $2.5 million in grants towards an agricultural teaching lab. The vision is a full-scale barn facility and barn teaching facility that is practically a stone's throw away from where the school currently is. We were fortunate enough a year ago, it was a year ago, I guess it was 2 years ago almost. Brian and Lori Field donated, or Lori decided to get out of the clubland business and donated her ewes to our FFA chapter. And so unfortunately, that has meant that the last 2 winters we have lambed at my house, which is not outfitted for lambing that many sheep. But we've kind of limped it by, and with the intention that we'll have a school barn facility, hopefully this summer, to where we can expand and grow that, as well as have a place for students to have their own animals. We've invested pretty heavily in those programs. Even though we don't have a barn yet, we have, I would say probably 15, actually more than that. We're probably $30,000 in panels and animal handling equipment, and other supplies, feeders and whatnot, ready for this opportunity. And then, and to be able to jump in and do something great with these animals. And so great opportunities for students. We do have a current parcel where we're able to keep the animals for the time being. We just can't build the barn on that particular parcel. So we have a place for grazing them. We've been able to put some fencing in and keep them comfortable. We can't build a barn in that current location. And so once we can get a barn, we'll be able to really grow and advance this and provide some opportunities for students and grow and develop our ultrasound technology component of that as well. In addition, we have a school CTE pickup that's shared between myself and the construction teacher. We have a stock trailer. We have a flatbed trailer too. You probably saw it there in the shop. We're in the process of redecking and rewiring that. It was built before I got here, and it's due for some upgrades. And so we've been upgrading that in class. We have 2 different livestock scales. We have a cargo trailer just for hauling livestock show supplies. So we're pretty well outfitted for taking care of our students with their livestock projects. And so this barn will be the next big step to get there. So I think that pretty well encapsulates what we've got going here, and a tour of the facilities. We were really hoping that I might have been able to tell a little bit more about our farm location. If it works out, it's really close, and and it's going to be great. And hopefully we can do this again sometime where I can show you that facility. But in the meantime, I see Phil's on here. Phil, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Daniel, after watching all this, I'm wanting to know when you sleep.
It's a bit of a struggle sometimes. The sheep has been the most challenge of it, because they've been lambing out at my house. It was a decision that my wife and I made that we'll deal with the middle of the night and weekend stuff rather than having students out at our house at weird hours. And so there have been some, as much as I have tried to manage lambing times with heavy evening feedings, I've still had a couple of middle of the night sets of lambs. And so that has been the biggest challenge of it. The intention is when we've got a school farm is that we will actually have pretty extensive camera systems in there, and the kids will take shifts so that I can minimize my amount of time out there. We additionally, my union approached me and said, look, we're in negotiations this year and you are doing a lot. How can we support you in negotiations? And their original pitch was an extra prep. And I said, honestly, with everything doing with the sheep, I said, an extra prep does not do me any good, because I'm spending a lot of time outside the workday managing the sheep. And so they're proposing in this year's contract a 15-day contract for during the school year to support those activities having to do specifically with the farm. In addition, so I have a stipend for FFA responsibilities. This will be hours that'll pay me specifically for just the sheep management.
Wonderful. Really impressive program, Daniel. Really, I just have been thrilled getting going this tour with you. Really impressed with what you've got going on there.
Thank you. So, and I think you're the only one on, so.
Okay, so is that it for the day?
I think so. I'm sure, I feel like there's in the back of my mind I missed something, but I think I walked through everything and talked about all the components of it.
Oh, that was, I was just really impressed. So it sounds like you've got lots of different pieces of the school system engaged in what you're doing. So you've got a science teacher teaching greenhouse, is that right? And
yep.
And you're dragging a math teacher in, and you've got strong relationships with the other CTE parts of the program. I talk a little bit about the kind of organization it requires to keep all those pieces going in the same direction.
It's been a bit of a learning curve for me this year, going from being a one teacher program to essentially a three teacher program. You know, even though Sonia's not teaching any ag classes yet, we still meet as a department of three and address things as a department of three. And so it's been a bit of a learning curve that I'm not the only guy in the game. And but it's been nice because it's been they bring a different perspective because they don't have an ag ed background. They bring a different perspective. And then one of the things that has been on my list of things is, so I am also the CTE director. We have 3 CTE programs of study. We have a business, construction, and ag programs of study. And I'm the CTE director, which is mostly a title, but there's some coordination effect in there and particularly communication with our regional coordinator as a CTE director. And one of my goals has been more cooperative effort across our 3 CTE programs. And so we started this year actually engaging in CTE department meetings to kind of plan things more wholly as a group, all 3 programs. The wood shop teacher, the construction teacher, he's right across the hallway from me. We're good friends, and we because we're down here on this end of the building kind of by ourselves, we're pretty close with it. And it's been nice partnering with the business teacher, because our new business teacher that has taken over the business program, she's kind of worked her way through different things. She was on the school board and was on the interview panel when I was hired, and her daughter was in my very first group of 7th graders. And And that daughter was chapter president for like 2 or 3 years. And her younger daughter was just elected as chapter president this year. And her husband, she became the guidance counselor. And in my old classroom, she and I were next door neighbors. She had the broom right next to my old classroom. And so we got a chance to build that working relationship. And then she moved into got her teaching degree and moved into an English language arts position. And then when the business position opened up, she transitioned into business. She's a super supportive part of the ag program. She has an ag degree. Her husband is a farmer that are on my alumni. Her husband has been on my advisory board. They're just until a recent and one of the properties we were looking extensively at was actually from them for a pretty good deal. The disadvantage was it was next to a subdivision, and everybody in that subdivision came and sat at a board meeting and made a really big mess of things. So that property option fell through. But they've just been amazing supporters. So being able to plan and coordinate with the business teacher as well. And she actually, in her business program, teaches an agribusiness class because she has an agricultural background. And so she, even in her business program, is putting things with an agricultural spin. And so we're looking at ways that we can cooperate more among our CTE programs.
Great. Well, Daniel, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for doing this.
Yep, thank you.